something that you have to report to the state, you have to register with the state, you have to pay tax to the state. What if you didn't have to do any of that? What if you could set up a business that has a federal charter, it goes straight, it's basically a constitutionally chartered business, where you never have to talk to the state, never register with the state, never pay tax to the state. It's federally chartered. I'm going to show you how this works. There are tens of thousands of businesses in the country that do this. It's not something I made up. It's actually been around for over 500 years. In 1533, the first spendthrift trust was set up by King Henry VIII in England. And when Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492, guess what they brought to America when they came to America? They brought with them the idea of a trust, which is nothing more than a contract. Did you know that contract law supersedes civil law, criminal law, and multiple types of law? Contract law supersedes all of them. Okay, contract law reigns supreme. And so we're going to talk about contract law, but you have the right to form a contract, okay? As long as you're doing the legal things, right? You have the right to form a contract where you control the contract. And insurance company uses them. All types of companies out there use contracts. So I'm going to go through a PowerPoint real quick, and then we're going to do Q&A. But this is me, sorry. I'm a master financial planner, chartered trust and estate planner, and chartered wealth manager. So let me just tell you. First of all, I'm not an attorney, and I'm not a CPA. I hire them, but I'm a financial planner by trade. And when I talk to you, I've approached everything from a financial planning standpoint. So I want to let's see. There are you can't see it all, but this is Soren Kierkegaard. He said there are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe what it isn't true, and the other is to refuse to believe what is true. You can be fooled two different ways. I'm going to talk to you about something that is true, and a lot of times people try to question what I'm going to tell you, but 100% what I'm going to tell you today is true. It's 100% true. It's been through the trust that we sell, the product we sell at Nexus has been through the court system, okay, 250 times at least. And I can show you 250 court cases where our trust program, the trust that we sell, the type of trust, it's an irrevocable trust, non-grantor, complex, discretionary spendthrift trust. Okay, that's 5 different ways to describe it. Irrevocable, non-grantor, complex, discretionary spendthrift trust. That type of instrument or trust document has been through the court system hundreds of times, and every time it survives. Even when the IRS came and said, hey, you owe tax, and the court said, no, you don't owe tax, because guess who gets to control if money becomes income? You do as a trustee in a trust. So I'm gonna now here this is gonna be interesting here. Now we're gonna play a game. Everyone, please stand up. Everyone, please stand up. Okay, now I'm gonna play a game. Here's the game. Okay, if you think, okay, there's gonna be 4 answers here. What does the IRS not tax? If you think it's people, sit down. Okay, what does the IRS not tax? If you think it's people, sit down. Okay, what does the IRS not tax? Not people, or how about money? Does the IRS tax people or money? So if they do not tax people, sit down. If they do not tax money, sit down. Or both. How about number 3? Who thinks it's number 3? Sit down. Okay. Wow. Okay. If you think it's number 4, sit down. Does the IRS tax people, money, both, or neither? Well, most of you who said neither, you got it right. Okay? You got it right. They do not, the IRS does not tax people. Okay? I'm going to prove it to you. Watch this. This is usdebtclock.org. Okay? You can write it down, go look at it. Okay? Up in there, it's kind of hard to see, but you'll see that there's 300 and something million people here, but only a certain percentage of them get taxed. Why is it that the government only taxes a certain number of people? It's because the IRS cannot, hear me out, the IRS cannot constitutionally tax people. They can't constitutionally do it. And they cannot constitutionally tax money or capital. The Constitution doesn't allow them to. The only thing they can tax is what? Income. Someone said it out there. The only thing they can tax is income. They can't tax money. So if there's a $100 bill lying on the ground over there, can the IRS jump over there and tax the $100 bill? No. They can't tax people and they can't tax money. So in my business, if I operate a business and I make $1 million in my business, is it taxable money? Not yet. It's not taxable money yet. When I made money in the business, it doesn't become taxable until what? Until, well, you report it, then you definitely owe the tax. But if I take possession of the money in the business, the LLC. So guess who? So if I have an LLC, there's an owner. Every structure. So at Nexus, we do corporate structuring. I specialize in corporate structuring. How to set up a business. If it's an LLC, C corp, S corp, trust, whatever it is. And Scott, I have to set it up in LLC. So how do I use your program with my LLC? Well, I can show you how to pull all profits out of an LLC, put it in a trust, and it never, ever in your life, your kid's life, your grandkids' life, never will that money become taxable. Why? Because it never becomes income. Remember, the IRS can only tax income. They can't tax people or money. Okay, so in your business, you earn millions of dollars, right? And that money goes into a trust through a contract. Okay? The contract provision is the most powerful thing in the country. Your ability to form a contract with someone is your most powerful birthright as an American. Watch this. I'm going to show you. Now, this is Learned Hand. He's the Court of Appeals judge, right before you become a Supreme Court judge. He says, anyone may arrange their affairs so the taxes shall be as low as possible. They're not bound to choose the pattern which best pays the Treasury. There's not even a patriotic duty to increase one's taxes. Over and over, the courts have said there's nothing sinister in arranging your affairs to keep your taxes as low as possible. Everyone does it, rich and poor alike, and all do right. Nobody owes the public duty to pay more than the law demands. Okay? I have many, many quotes like this. Okay? So this is Judge Hand, Learned Hand, and here's what he said right here. This is really cool. Now, pay attention here. Something will be said today to make you a better investor or a better business owner. If you're listening, you will find it. You will see it. Okay? Something will be said today, whether it's me, whether it's Bill Walsh, whether it's any of the speakers up here, something is going to be said today that's going to make you a much better person, much better investor. All I'm inviting you to do is to hear me out and to know what's real and what's true. Everything I say is backed up by tax code, case law, trust code, and all the courts. I have hundreds of court cases to prove everything I tell you. And so here's this. I love this quote. It's one of my favorite ones. He says, "So Judge Learned Hand." He said, "Anyone can arrange their affairs so the tax is as low as possible. It's not illegal." He says there are two tax systems in our country, one for the informed and one for the uninformed, and both are legal. You can choose the pattern which most pays the Treasury if you want to, or you choose the pattern which least pays the Treasury. What I'm going to show you today, teach you today, is that you have it's your American birthright, okay, to form a trust, which is a contract. By the way, it has its own EIN. It has its own P&L. It has its own balance sheet. It has its own constitutional rights. It has, in a courtroom, it's allowed its own attorney. A trust, a contract you create is literally more powerful than you in a courtroom. Okay? Because this specific trust that we're talking about has powers written in the contract that way supersede the powers that you have as a person. Okay? And I'm going to explain that. If you make money or you receive income, $1 million, $2 million, $10 million, doesn't matter. If you earn income, you have to pay tax because you took possession of the money. But when you form a contract, a trust over here, it earns the money. You have the right to use the tax code, and I'll show you the tax code. It's tax code 643. Use the tax code to create all the money you want, but it never becomes income. And therefore, there's no tax due. Okay? And so, and we have, by the way, thousands of clients at Nexus, thousands. We file thousands of tax returns every year. And my clients never pay a tax with these trusts. They never. Because, and we've been through 3 audits. One of my accountants has been doing the same program. In fact, I learned this program from him for 39 years. He personally has filed over 150,000 tax returns, his firm, his group, in 39 years, 150,000 tax returns, and never had an audit, only had one audit actually, and they received a no change letter. So the IRS said, hey, I make no changes to this structure. Okay, so, by the way, freedom is your American birthright. Your birthright is freedom. You have freedom in America if you're a citizen. You have freedoms. And your freedom to contract, let me submit to you, is your most powerful right. Okay, now what I'm talking about is, I'm talking about privacy control, asset control, liability control, tax control, and peace of mind control. You have the ability, okay, to control if anyone can find your entity or structure or business on the internet. Now, if you're an LLC, what state does everyone choose in America to set up an LLC? Someone want to tell me? Wyoming and Delaware, okay? Okay, why do they do that? They do it because they don't want people to know or be able to sue them, because in Wyoming they keep it hidden who the owners are and all that stuff. That's why they do it. But what if you didn't have to do that? What if that was completely unnecessary to go set up a statutory entity where you have to register with the state, set everything up with the state, pay tax to the state, do whatever the state says? When you set up an LLC, you're full of handcuffs. If you set up a C Corp or S Corp, that's even worse. You have more handcuffs. If you set up a nonprofit organization, that's even 10 times worse. Okay? You can set up structures that the states create, but guess what? You're subject. You have handcuffs, hundreds of them. You're subject to everything they do, and every time they make a change, you're the one that has to jump through all these hoops. What if you didn't even ever have to do that? In the state, like a year ago, when they came out with the reporting requirement for LLCs, who remembers what that's called? Corporate transparency. Yeah, that's right. When they came out with that, all these people were panicking. I don't want to have to disclose to all my corporate. Well, guess what? Our trust is not subject to that. We're not subject to these state controlled state rules, and so let's go. So these are the 5 controls I want you to have power of. I want you to be able to control the 5 controls when you invest or when you operate a business. And watch this. There's 7 controls. The IRS normally, watch this, gets to control who, what, when, where, why, how. They get to control who's taxed, what's taxed, when is taxed, where is taxed, why is taxed, how is taxed. But I only need to control one of these to checkmate the IRS. Okay. Now the IRS is not. They're not bad people. It's just that I don't want to pay them. They can do all they want to do. They can play their games with all these people all they want. I'm not saying they're bad people. It's just that I don't want to have anything to do with them. Okay? And I choose. Now watch this. I only need one of the 7 to checkmate the IRS. I can beat them at their own game by only controlling one of the 7. Which one do you think it is? If. I get to control if they can tax me, right? Because guess what? How many have ever heard that paying taxes is voluntary? Anyone ever heard that? The IRS has admitted multiple times on camera that paying taxes is voluntary. Okay? But let me explain how that works. I'm not sitting here telling you don't pay your taxes. In fact, I'm telling you, pay your tax. If you take income, you better pay your taxes or you go to jail. But I don't look good in orange. Okay? I'm not going to jail. That's why I don't take income. I make all this money over here in this trust, but I don't take possession of the money. If you own an LLC, guess where the profit ends up? Does it end up on an LLC tax return, or does it end up on my personal return? Who knows? LLC. It always ends up on your personal return. You took possession of profit. Therefore, it's income. Therefore, you got to pay the tax. Okay? So I only have to control one of these to beat them at their own game. See, when I set up a trust, I'm using the tax code to control if I create a taxable event or taxable situation. because I don't take possession of the money. It's not my money. Okay? And that's the beautiful thing. So, 2 rules in the tax code. Number 1, you only owe tax on taxable income. You only owe tax on taxable income. You don't owe tax if there's no taxable income. Number 2, you only owe taxes when taxes are due. So how many here have an IRA, 401k, or some type of deferred qualified plan? Okay? Every year when you put money into those things, not including at Roth, when you put money into IRA or 401k, do you pay tax every year on that? No. What happens to the tax? You pay it when? You only pay tax when you take it out. Did you know that an IRA is a trust? People don't know that. It's a contract. Do you know who the beneficiary is of the IRA? You are. When you get that letter in the mail and it says FBO for the benefit of Scott McGrath, or for the benefit of James Smith, you're the beneficiary. The IRA is a trust. A 401k is a trust. They're all trusts. But guess what? Their trusts are set up to make you the beneficiary and make you pay the tax. Okay, they're set up to do that. What if you can create your own trust that's 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times better than the IRA? Our trust, you don't need an IRA. You don't need 401k. You don't need any of that because the money comes in pre-tax and is deferred for the next 1,000 years. You don't need a 401k. You don't need any kind of qualified account. In fact, the trust is the best qualified account you could ever dream of because you control the trust. And by the way, no one can sue you, not even the IRS. And I have Supreme Court rulings, Supreme Court cases to prove that they can't touch this money. Okay? And I'm going to tell you one other thing about this. I can show you a court case. Well, even when the trust distributes the money, I can show you a court case. In fact, you can look it up, Burns versus Miller. Burns versus Miller, if you want to look it up. Burns versus Miller says that even when this trust, this powerful spendthrift trust that I'm going to tell you about, when I distribute the money to my beneficiary, the creditors can't even touch it when after I distributed it. So the court case, Burns versus Miller, the trust distributed money out to their kids, and the creditors went after the kids because now they had money. And the court said, wait a minute, not only is a spendthrift trust exempt from turnover orders, but even the distribution for the life of the person receiving it is exempt from turnover orders. They can't come after the person after the trust distributed it. That's unbelievable. I mean, the power of this trust is so crazy. And I'm just scratching the surface, by the way. Okay. Skelly Wright, U.S. Court of Appeals, he says it's unconstitutional to collect taxes that are not due. So if I defer income that I make in my LLC or C Corp or S Corp, if I defer income from those structures into a trust and don't take any profit and put everything in a trust, it's unconstitutional for them to tax it because the taxes aren't due. The taxes are not due. There's no distribution. There's no tax due. And by the way, this is a discretionary trust. Well, guess who do you think controls it if you ever distribute the money? Well, the number one question I get is, God, if I never distribute the money, how do I get money out? How do I do everything? You live your life as a trustee. You don't live your life as an individual. You don't buy a car. You let the trust buy the car. You don't buy a house. You let the trust buy the house. You don't buy gold, guns, or jewelry. You let the trust buy your gold and your guns and your jewelry. You know, these principles are literally found in the Bible too, by the way. I'm not getting religious, but I'm saying giving up everything, there is another life that you don't know about that is amazing that you can live. And when I walk out of my door every day, and I can walk out knowing that number one, no one can touch me, they can't sue me, they can't take anything I have, because it's everything in this trust. I can show you 250 court cases. Everything in this trust is exempt from a turnover order. The courts can't touch the assets no matter what I do. Even if I rob a bank, even if I do anything illegal, okay? They can't touch this. The only thing they can touch over here is if there was fraudulent conveyance into the trust. But I don't own anything. And so you can't sue me because I don't own anything. In fact, you're going to have a hard time finding an attorney to take the case. Because I tell them, hey, I'm uncollectible. I don't own anything. You can waste your $10,000 and do all your depositions, but I don't own anything. and I'm uncollectible. And in the end, even if you got a judgment against me, it'll fall off my credit in 10 years. So I don't own anything. I don't have any income. I don't need income. And so, all right, let's go to the next. Now, we're going to do some Q&A in just a second. But before I do, I want to show you a few more slides. We got 10 minutes? Okay. John Rockefeller. Who's famous for this type of trust? The Rockefellers are. Now, a lot of people try to think they know what they're talking about. They say, hey, this is the Rockefeller Trust. No, it's not. You're using grantor trust, or living trust, or revocable trust, or simple trust. They're all using the wrong trust. They're not. In fact, Matt Rockefeller is a friend of mine. Okay, we text each other all the time. Trust me, all these people out there that say they're using the Rockefeller Trust, they're scam artists. They have no clue what the Rockefellers used. I do. I know Matthew Rockefeller. I know one of the grandkids of the family. Okay, and I'm telling you, they cannot get the results that you can get with our trust with a grantor. 99% of all people that raise their hand, I have a trust, they have a grantor trust, a living trust, or revocable trust. 99%. Okay? And those are the wrong trust if you want all the benefits I'm talking about. Okay? What did he say? He said, own nothing. They're like, Rockefeller's the richest man in the world. No, he's not. He's the poorest man in the world because he didn't own anything. Own nothing, control everything. He had control, but he didn't need ownership. In fact, ownership is an illusion. I'm a Christian. The Bible says the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, and all that dwells in it. God owns everything. You don't own anything. If you think you own anything, if you think you own something, you're wasting your time. You don't own it. In 20, 30 years when you die, you can't take it with you. Someone else is going to get it. You might as well have control from the grave. Set up a trust, control it today, and get control from the grave with the trust. If you die with yourself owning it, you're going to lose it. Someone else is going to control it. You might as well get control from the grave, and I can teach you how to do that. So own nothing, control everything. Here we go. I won't go into this, but our trust is not a creature of the legislature. Don't ever use a trust that is subject to the legislature. We don't want them having any control over what we do in the trust. Okay. We're going to do Q&A. Your right to contract is guaranteed by the Article 1 of the Constitution. When they wrote the Constitution, the very first article, they put in what's called the contract clause. It's your freedom to form a contract. If I hire you to mow my yard for $1 million, did you know the government can't come between our contract for you to mow my yard for $1 million? Because we formed a contract. Your power to create a contract is your American birthright, and I submit to you it's the most powerful freedom you have. Landmark, and if you don't believe me, just look at court cases. I can prove it with case law. I prove everything with case law. I was in a room like this with 250 CPAs. Imagine yourself in a room with 250 CPAs, and I'm giving you this speech. Okay? It was the Texas Society of Enrolled Agents is what it was. They're all enrolled agents CPAs. Can you imagine the questions I got for 6 hours? And when I left that day, do you know not one person could refute anything I said? Why? Because I used case law, okay? I used the tax code, then I used trust code. But at the end of the day, I won. I checkmated them with court cases that they don't have any clue about. They don't read court cases. But I can show you all the court cases where the trusts go to court and the IRS is like, you owe this money, and the court's like, nope, because you haven't distributed, and you have the right to take income and turn it into principal. And there's no, just like money goes in a 401k, there's no tax on that until 20 years later. You have the right to set the rules. Okay, here it goes. Fletcher versus Peck. Now that's in 1810, guys, over 200 years ago. This was codified in the court case law library 200 years ago. Okay, I got 5 minutes. All right, here we go. By the way, the trust is a spendthrift trust. That's the name of the trust. It's called a spendthrift trust. But don't let an attorney set up a revocable spendthrift trust. Don't let them do it, because you won't like the outcome. Okay? Attorneys will oftentimes set it up wrong. Always. So always check with me before you set one up. Okay. All right. I don't have time to go into court cases. I can do that later. Okay. So I'm just going to scroll through these real quick. But I can show you court cases that prove that there's no tax until you distribute the money out. I don't even ever need to distribute it out. Okay, now this is the tax code right here. It says right here, this is the actual tax code. Do you know 14,000 pages of tax code and only one controls that what my clients do? One page, right here. It says right here, out of the gross income that constitutes an extraordinary dividend or taxable stock dividend, which the fiduciary acts in good faith determines it to be allocated to corpus or principal. Think about that. The trustee determines it to be set aside for principal. It's a term under the terms of the government instrument shall not be considered income. So it's not income. The money that goes in this trust is not income. They can't tax it. Okay? It's not gross income, it's not DNI, it's none of that. I got every question you can imagine from CPA. That's DNI, that's trust fiduciary accounting income. That's, they try to get all smart. I'm like, that's not what the code says. It doesn't say, you think that, but that's not what it says. And so when the tax code says it's not income, it's not income. Okay? And so there's 5 amazing benefits. I can't go through it, but because I don't have time. But the amazing benefits of this trust is you can live a life with pre-tax income in a trust that's not income. You can live life in a trust that brings in money pre-tax. Did you know if you have a $3,000 mortgage, you had to pay $1,000 in tax to pay the mortgage? But what if the trust paid all the bills? What if the trust paid the mortgage and the car loan, and the trust paid all the bills? Think about that, all the bills. It's paying it with pre-tax money, so now every bill you had just went down 30% in cost. Your mortgage went down, your insurance went down. That's the way the ultra-rich live, people. Okay, it's when you hear someone say, well, I didn't have the money to pay the fancy attorneys to do that, you don't need a fancy attorney. This is the holy grail of financial planning. I spent 15 years studying every financial plan out there that you can plan. And by the way, 90% of them are complete trash garbage. Because guess what? For every gimme, there's a gotcha. And in the end, all those financial plans that they think they have, in the end, you pay a crap load of tax in the end. That sucks. Right? Okay. So I don't have time. This is an example of the letter. We have 3 letters like this. We completed a review examination of your tax return for the year shown above. We make no changes to your reported tax. When we get audited, there's no change. The IRS doesn't do anything. Okay, now this is a PLR. A lot of CPAs, I need a private letter ruling to prove this is real. Well, I got one right here, and it proves it's real. In the words of the IRS, it says, 643A, the regulations there are under, exclude from the computation of income, right there. Excludes from the computation of DNI, okay? By reason of his determination, the trustee's determination gets to decide. It says it right there, the IRS's own words in the PR. All right, I don't have any more time. He's wanting me to go. Let's do Q&A. Who has a question? Please give me a few questions. Yes, please go.
Is there a point in moving an IRA into a trust?
You can't. You cannot move qualified money into a trust.
What about real estate?
All my clients, I have billionaire clients that put all the real estate in this trust. Because you can flip something every day. I have clients that flip hotels and never pay a capital gain tax. There is no capital gain tax in this trust.
And can you finance it within the trust, or do you have to take it out and then put it back in?
Financing is tricky, and I have to explain that later. But no, you can't finance the trust because lenders don't like to lend money to irrevocable trust. But there's a way to do it, and I can teach you. Who has the next question?
Does it ever make sense to have more than one?
Yes. I would say 70% of my clients actually have 2. One, for a business to run their business in, to get rid of their large lawsuit coming, their LLC. To get rid of the LLC, they have a business trust. Okay?
Instead of calling it income, call it earnings.
No, it's let's go to the tax code. That's why the CPAs can't get me, because I use the words of the IRS every time. Well, watch this. Let's use the words of the IRS. Gains from the sale or change of capital assets shall be excluded. Excluded from income. Shall be excluded. Okay? If you have the right trust. That's what the sentence, the first sentence in yellow just said. If you have the right trust, gains are excluded. You can flip properties all day long. But it's not, it says the gains are excluded. Say your question one more time though, just so.
My question is, so if you take the money out as income, obviously you have to.
Yeah.
But if instead of calling it income, if we have language.
It's capital.
that says-
Remember, money is capital. So
Capital.
when money grows, it's called capital gains. So it's either capital or capital gains. There's no other thing. There's no other way to describe it. It's either capital or capital gains.
What's the correct
Say that again? You'll never need a 1031 exchange ever again. You don't need to ever do a 1031. My clients never have a need for a 1031 because there is no capital gain. You'll need a 1031 if you created income. But remember, you can make $1 million, billion, trillion in this trust and it's never income, so you never need to defer anything. All right, so we're going to a break. I wish I had 5 more hours with you, but I don't. It's been very nice to meet you. If you come meet me, I'll give you my business card. Thank you.